Alex's friend's awful 1923 fate calls back to Spencer Dutton's tragic origin. The way the story ends for Alex Dutton's Julia Schlattfer friends in 1923 is awful, and their fates call back to Spencer Dutton's Brandon Sklenar tragic origin story. Spencer's wife experiences a harrowing journey in 1923 Season 2. Fueled by her determination to reunite with her child's father. After Paul, Augustus Prue, and Hillary, Janet Montgomery, rescue Alex in the Chicago train station, it looks like Alex has experienced a twist of fate, returning with the couple to their home in Winnetka for a bit of respite. Shockingly, the Chicagoans even offer to personally drive Alex to Emigrant, Montana. While the development warmed my heart momentarily, I worried about the Brits' journey, since the worst things happened to Alex Dutton in 1923. Paul and Hillary joining forces with the character made their stories just as ill-fated, adding to the list of tragedies 1923's characters have encountered in the face of winter. It's been a cruel and unforgiving wintertime for Jacob, Harrison Ford, and Cara Dutton's Helen Mirren family, with Elizabeth Strafford, Michelle Randolph, losing her husband Jack, Darren Mann, in Episode 6. Therefore, Alex's friend's 1923 story joined the list of tragedies the family has endured. When Paul and Hillary appeared on Alex's westbound Union Pacific train, heading for Chicago, the Brits were a bit brazen. Hillary made vulgar assumptions about Alex's bruises and the men in America, not knowing Spencer's wife was beaten in the Grand Central Terminal in 1923 Season 2, Episode 4. However, when Alex serves them later in the dining car, she reveals her wit, making an insightful remark about the declining value of Francis franc. Alexa's comment causes the couple to take a liking to their server, motivating Paul and Hillary to step in and save Alex on 2 occasions. Paul and Hillary take Alex to Winnetka after speaking to the Chicago police on her behalf. As they host her over tea and cigarettes, the couple hear Alex and Spencer's incredible 1923 story, with Paul remarking it's the most fantastic thing he's heard. The epic tale causes Paul to step up and offer to drive Alex to Montana. While the whimsical gesture was kind-hearted, it was ultimately a fatal excursion. The temperature plummets as Paul and Hillary drive Alex through the American North, with snow beginning to coat the road as the group approaches Buffalo, Wyoming. Despite a woman at the gas station telling Paul and Hillary that Alex should take the train to Montana, remarking that the roads will be more treacherous as their journey continues, the group fails to heed the local wisdom. An ominous tone sets in as Paul and Hillary begin to shiver, with Paul giving his wife his gloves and Alex getting on the floor to stay warm. When she wakes up on the roadside, Alex remarks to Hillary, only to find her friend frozen to death in the passenger seat. Despite foreshadowing, the development made for a shocking Yellowstone death. Unfortunately, Paul and Hillary's freezing to death is a painful reminder of a shocking death within the Dutton family. While 1923 follows some of the earliest family members, the show was preceded by 1883, the earliest set Yellowstone prequel about the Dutton family featuring James, Tim McGraw, and Margaret Dutton, Faith Hill. While he does not appear in 1883, and didn't witness his family's journey along the Oregon Trail to Montana, Spencer is Margaret's youngest child, born after the family settled in Paradise Valley. Spencer was born after his sister, Elsa Isabel May, died, marking the end of his family's journey. Despite Elsa's 1883 death due to the perilous nature of the journey, James and Margaret Dutton survived the trip, living to settle in the Paradise Valley with their son John, Audie Rick. However, when 1923 Season 1 premiered as the spiritual sequel to 1883, Elsa Dutton's narration revealed an ominous development about her mother, explaining why Jacob and Cara now run the ranch. Elsa reveals that after her father's death, Margaret Dutton froze to death, with Jacob finding her in a snowdrift. The mother's death left her two boys, John and Spencer, to fend for themselves in the cold. Unfortunately, the fate of Alex's friends in 1923 Season 2, Episode 6, resembles what happened to Spencer's mother, Margaret. That could come back in the finale. It was devastating to watch Alex discover that Paul and Hillary were dead. The experience added another trauma to Alex's list. Moreover, Paul and Hillary became Alex's friends along the journey. If she makes it to the ranch now, Spencer's wife will not only be worse for wear, but she will be mourning the loss of two friends. The awful Yellowstone deaths could have a silver lining, though bringing Alex and Spencer even closer. If Alex makes it to the ranch now, she will have an epic story to tell, with Paul and Hillary's deaths being one of the most recent and impactful elements. Upon hearing the saga, Spencer will be able to empathize with Alex's situation completely, having lost his mother to the brutal cold. Spencer will surely understand Alex's hardship, and she will understand his. Elsa Dutton tells us in 1923's premiere that Jacob was the one to find Margaret's frozen corpse, so Spencer's uncle, too, will be able to empathize with Alex like he did with Elizabeth, probably even more so. The sun over Africa was unrelenting, an indifferent-eyed bearing down on the wreckage of humanity. The coastline, once sparkling and full of promise, now held the stench of decay and the whispers of death. Alex stood at the edge of the dunes, her linen dress flapping in the wind like a mourning veil. The sea had taken too much. Her friends, laughing, bright souls, were now names swallowed by the waves. The memories came in flashes. Champagne bottles popped at the edge of a sandbar. Laughter echoed into the wind. Then the rumble of hoofbeats, gunshots, and blood in the surf. Alex couldn't remember who had fallen first, perhaps Georgina, her eyes wide in disbelief as a bullet pierced her ivory shoulder. Or maybe Henry, dragged into the tide by men whose faces were painted in red clay and rage. It was a massacre, but no one back in London would call it that. They would call it an unfortunate incident, one that would be swept away by the tide of imperial denial. But Alex knew what it was, a reckoning. Spencer had warned her in the quiet of their tent under a moon that looked like a hunter's eye. He had told her that the world was not kind to softness. That death didn't announce itself with thunder, but crept like a jackal in the dark. He knew because he had seen it. He had lived it. He was it. When Alex had first met Spencer Dutton, she thought he was a man running from something. But she had been wrong. Spencer wasn't running, he was chasing ghosts. Not just of his comrades, his brother John, or the men who had died under his command in the Great War, but ghosts that lived inside him. Born of violence, shaped by it. And in the horror that had taken her friends, Alex felt the echo of Spencer's origin. It wasn't just that death had revisited them. It was how it came. The senselessness, the brutality, the sheer randomness of who was allowed to survive. Much like the lions Spencer used to hunt, fate had picked its prey without explanation. Back in Montana, Spencer had been a boy of laughter, adventure, and stars in his eyes. The son of James and Margaret Dutton, he was raised on stories of honor and resilience. But when the Great War came, he left the ranch with a rifle and returned with scars no one could see. What had shaped Spencer wasn't just the death around him, but the cold machinery of war that taught him to turn it off, to survive by shutting everything down. "I stopped being afraid of death," he once whispered to Alex, his voice low and empty. "But I never stopped being afraid of losing the people I love." Now as Alex clutched the last letter Spencer had written her, creased and nearly unreadable, she saw the foreshadowing between his past and their present. He had lost his brother to greed. He had watched his mother bury herself in grief. He had survived battlefields where men became meat, and love was a memory buried in mud. And now Alex had been marked in the same way. The loss of her friends wasn't just a tragedy, it was a transformation. The woman who once giggled in silk was gone. In her place stood someone who understood the language of Spencer's silence. Someone who now knew what it meant to love in a world where people vanished in an instant. When she finally found Spencer again, somewhere between Cairo and the edge of the world, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply walked into his arms, burying her face into the crook of his shoulder. "You knew," she whispered. He nodded, holding her tighter. "I wish I didn't." They didn't speak of her friends again, not because they didn't matter, but because Spencer knew there were some wounds that had to be carried, not spoken. What Alex didn't know yet was how this loss would shape her in the years to come. How she would become as fierce as any Dutton, with a spirit carved by fire and grief. That one day, in Montana, she would ride horses through snow-covered forests with the same steel in her eyes that Spencer once carried on the battlefields. And when she faced down death again, because it always came for the Duttons, she would not flinch. The awful fate of her friends in 1923 was not just a chapter in her story. It was a mirror held up to the Dutton legacy. That survival comes at a cost, and that love, to endure, must walk through fire.